Today on TimesCast.
She has made up a lot over the years of talking about the money she's brought back to the state.
Sure.
You've tried to turn that against her.
Patty Murray, an 18-year incumbent, is in danger of losing her Senate seat. The three-way Alaska Senate race is a toss-up, giving Democrat Scott McAdams an unexpected chance. Tuesday's Science Times explores the psychology of political compromise. In Washington state, incumbent Senator Patty Murray is head-to-head in the polls with Republican Dino Rossi. Seattle Bureau Chief William Yardley went to a small gathering of campaign workers for Dino Rossi on Saturday.
We need to have not only you send in your vote, you got to get your family members and your neighbors and everybody you work with who, of course, are going to vote the right way.
We're in Auburn, Washington, a Republican campaign headquarters where Dino Rossi, a Republican Senate candidate, has just held a small rally and talked to supporters who are trying to get out the vote for him on Election Day. Mr. Rossi is running against Senator Patty Murray, a three-term Democratic incumbent. It's one of the closest Senate races in the country. Mr. Rossi is not a Tea Party candidate. In many ways, he's the face of the Republican establishment here in Washington. He's a former state senator, and he's run twice for governor. You don't hear a lot about social issues in the race. It's almost entirely fiscal, jobs and taxes. Rossi has hammered Murray on everything from the bank bailout to the health care bill. He's also tried to turn one of her strengths against her.
She has made up a lot over the years of talking about the money she's brought back to the state.
Sure.
You've tried to turn that against her.
Well, no, I think most people understand that what's happened is she thinks that somehow you can stimulate your way to prosperity, and if that were true, why would we have a 17.4% functional unemployment rate in the state of Washington? Clearly, it didn't work.
Senator Murray has aggressively defended her record, arguing that federal spending on infrastructure and other projects is critical for local economies. Washington has been electing more Democrats and Republicans in recent years. Both its senators, the governor, are Democrats. The legislature is controlled by Democrats. Mr. Rossi has lost two statewide races, but he remains popular, and this year the national political climate could work in his favor.
So, Mike, there's a lot of excitement in Alaska in these last hours before the election. You wouldn't expect it. Tell me about it.
Right. So you have a really interesting three-way race there between Joe Miller, the Republican, Lisa Murkowski, who he defeated for the Republican nomination. She's the incumbent senator. She's running a write-in campaign, and the Democrat, Scott McAdams. What's really interesting here, because of a bunch of gaffes, Joe Miller has fallen in the polls. Lisa Murkowski has risen, and that has given Democrats a bit of hope that maybe Scott McAdams can kind of go up through the middle and win in a state that, is a libertarian state in a very conservative year. Nobody really gave the Democrats much hope for picking that up. It would be quite a surprise.
And Sarah Palin's played a big role here for Joe Miller. She's got a lot at stake.
Right, absolutely, a huge amount at stake. Remember, she was the one that really gave him the juice, gave Joe Miller the juice to kind of come in and win the primary in Alaska, beat Lisa Murkowski. Sarah Palin's been in Alaska again in the last few days to try to boost his bid. If he loses, and especially if the Democrat wins, that's a huge black mark on her campaign record this season.
If the political prognosticators are correct, the House will go Republican and the Senate Democratic. Tuesday's Science Times explores the psychology of political compromise.
Ben, it's been a vicious campaign season. Is there anything that's going to make these candidates compromise when they actually have to take their seats?
Reminding people of something they care about personally, for example. It sounds trivial, but we have some studies now showing that can be kind of a powerful primer for people to engage another person, an opponent.
You give a lovely example in your story that goes back to the Jimmy Carter administration.
During the negotiations for the what became the Camp David Accords, negotiations were breaking down, and President Carter approached Menachem Begin, the Prime Minister of Israel, and gave him signed photographs. And those photographs were addressed to each of the 8 of Begin's grandchildren. And Begin teared up a little bit, and shortly thereafter re-engaged the negotiations with Sadat. So that's an example, at least according to Carter's version, where this reminder of an important personal value and a personal thing allowed this politician to open up to further negotiations.
It's sort of hard to picture this happening with something like the expiration of the Bush-era tax cuts, which has been such a polarizing issue between Democrats and Republicans.
I think it's up to each candidate or each politician to decide for themselves whether they're interested in moving the debate forward or not. And if they want to move it forward, the psychological studies suggest that, again, these personal reminders of greater values or things you value in your personal life seem to work well in getting people to at least engage an opponent.
So this means there's some hope.
I think so. I hope so.
Join us again tomorrow for another TimesCast.